People fear what they don't understand, and they hate what they can't conquer. Well, Kingdom Come Deliverance throws that famous statement right out of the window. There's so much for you, the player, and the protagonist Henry to not understand once you've started the game. Whether that's the refreshingly unique combat mechanics that have an incredibly steep learning curve, or the fact that one of the quickest ways to increase Henry's skill stats is to read a book on that particular skill, but oh no, that's another thing to not understand, because good old Henry's an illiterate.
Look at that door, dude. See that door right there? One marked pirate. You think a pirate lives in there?
I see a door marked private. Is that the door you're talking about?
And that brings me on to people hating what they can't conquer. There'll be an abundance of doors that are metaphorically marked private, pockets to pick, and oh so tempting loot to swipe, but eagle-eyed NPCs will not give you a cat in hell's chance of stealing any of the good stuff without landing yourself in prison at least. And not only that, the lockpicking and pickpocketing mechanics are about as difficult as getting into a nun's knickers. With all that being said, I didn't fear or hate Kingdom Come Deliverance for 1 second. In fact, I am not a fan of that marketing buzzword immersive, because most games just aren't when they claim to be, but Kingdom Come Deliverance is hands down one of the most immersive RPG experiences I've ever played. I called Kingdom Come Deliverance an RPG just now, and it is, but it very nearly treads on the toes of a medieval simulator at times. But before I go into why Kingdom Come is so immersive, I've got to stress that it's far from perfect. There's a few chinks in its armour. For starters, the fast travel is about as fast as a chronically stoned sloth who was bottom of his class and now spends his adult life procrastinating over which photo hides the fact he's wearing a toupee so he can use it as his dating profile picture on treeharmony.slow.toupee, and all to avoid another first date rejection.
Was that a toupee, you piece of shit?
Oh my god, hurry up! I actually grew to like the fast travel system in the end. As the further you travel, yes, the longer it takes, but the risk of being ambushed or some other random event goes up too, and this forced me into making a decision about the importance of fast traveling, whether that's just simply exploring the incredible world of Bohemia or taking the scenic route to avoid the beaten path and any potential ambush, especially if I'm low on health, potion remedies or bandages. Another chink in its armour is the optimisation and bugs, which developers Warhorse Studios have massively improved on since they released Kingdom Come, and let's not forget that this was their debut game. There's still the odd NPC pathing bug and some pretty horrible and frequent pop-in that can sadly break the immersion that the game is so adamantly trying to hang its hat on. On console you get what you're given and you can like it or lump it, but on PC I was able to get it running to a very pleasurable standard with minimal pop-in, and all it took was for me to completely neglect my family for a whole week and get myself a master's degree in computer programming.
Alright, let us see here. Keystrokes, escape key, both colon and semicolon, backslash, ampersand.
Kingdom Come Deliverance refuses to allow the player to get their own way all the time, unlike in Skyrim or Fallout, let's say. In some ways I loved a certain sense of realism, but in others I just wish the game recognised that it's a game. An example of me enjoying this is that stealing something is extremely difficult, whether that be from someone's pocket or swiping something from a table. If someone's in the room and nearly all shop merchants have a guard stood next to them, then you're buggered, and your best bet is to wait for them to go to sleep, and even then the merchant will have packed up all his goods away. You can't just crouch and manipulate yourself into the darkest corner of the room and wait until an eye symbol in the middle of the screen gives you the green light to open a chest and then steal all of its contents. Even if you do manage to open a chest without being spotted, the game isn't paused and someone will inevitably spot you. Now, an example of the game not letting me get my own way that I don't like was the saving. There's 3 ways to save the game: either a forced save at a major story point in the game, quitting the game entirely will save the game.
Ain't nobody ain't got time for that.
Or drinking an expensive consumable called Savior Schnapps. For an open world RPG like this, I thought this was a little pointless, so that's why I installed one of the most popular mods allowing me to save whenever I want. I did install one other mod, and that was to add a reticle when aiming with a bow and arrow, which brings me onto the combat. It's a totally unique experience with a really steep learning curve. The melee combat feels like it's built for 1v1 because there's an obvious difficulty bump when you're outnumbered, which in truth is exactly how it should be. The player's skill level and Henry's skill level feel so tangible as you progress though, and eventually you'll be holding your own against 3, maybe even 4 enemies. Switching the lock-on between them is a nightmare though, because there's a fixed lock-on and a semi-lock-on, and that is better used in situations when you're outnumbered, but it still felt like I was fighting the game's mechanics more than the enemies at times. I can't stress enough how meaningful each one of your swings or stabs have to be. Those gold arrows locked on the enemy you can see are the directional input for your right stick, and there's a small window to block the enemy's strikes when a little green shield appears in the middle of those arrows. The enemy can block in each direction that you're aiming for, and through either changing the direction of your swing at the last second to trick the enemy, or by unlocking new skill moves that require precise inputs, you can eventually master the combat, but it's not easy and it definitely requires some patience. The same can be said about the bow and arrow, again a huge dose of realism to it, but that might not be for everyone. Even adding the reticle mod doesn't make it that much easier because you've still got to account for the sway, but it certainly made the early hours of the game a little more enjoyable. This is my 3rd playthrough and my first was on the PS4 with no mods obviously, so please don't go away thinking mods are essential to enjoy this game because that's just not true. I really enjoyed the narrative in Kingdom Come because the foundations of most RPGs are built on worthwhile narratives. The game takes place in 15th century Bohemia, now the Czech Republic, and focuses on the story of Henry, the humble son of a locally famous blacksmith, on his journey to retrieve the legendary lost sword his father created and avenge the death of his parents at the hands of the evil Sigismund and his brutal army. I mean, just look at these savages and look at poor Henry's face. He's literally watching his mum getting penetrated by multiple dudes and he's not even batting an eyelid. This is an example of a boy becoming a man, and you're the lucky one who gets to take Henry on that journey. There's some very basic survival aspects to the game where Henry must maintain his nourishment and energy bars by eating and sleeping respectively. These are the consistent survival mechanics, but there's the odd circumstantial one like bandaging wounds, counteracting poisons, and then there's the maintaining your gear too. Anyone who's watched a few of my reviews will know I'm a huge fan of tangible and methodical mechanics that are typically the press of a button in other games. Now, maintaining Henry's weapon can be done by simply pressing a button at a blacksmith and paying him to repair your gear, but in the early hours of the game you'd be wise to save your money and learn how to actually use a grindstone, which was surprisingly difficult to educate my muscle memory to get my blade sharpened to perfection. The same can be said about alchemy. Sure, you can just buy the variety of potions that offer temporary buffs, but they don't come cheap, and operating the alchemy table is another skill that would be wise to learn. Just like the grindstone, it'll take some practice and Henry will need to find or purchase the necessary recipes too. This is a level of immersion that is unmatched in my opinion. The game is packed with quirky little details. Henry can overeat, so stuffing your face doesn't exactly result in a catastrophic heart failure, but he will become a little sluggish to say the least. You can also visit the prostitute-riddled bathhouses to, wash, which does increase Henry's charisma apparently. At first I felt like I wasn't washing him enough though, because he had the charisma of a toddler's veruca, but in fairness to the lad, he did just witness the butchering of his parents. But as the game progresses, Henry's charm shines through as he converses with hundreds of different characters, each offering well-performed voice acting and a very believable and organic feel to each interaction. Your choices matter too, from each action you take within a quest dictating the outcome to going back to being washed, for example, or your garments being too soiled or bloodied, dictating how likely you are to pass a certain speech skill check.
Good God, what happened to your clothes?
The quests on the whole are some of the most memorable quests I can think of, and the game very deliberately holds your hand at times, then very abruptly pulls that hand away to let you fend for yourself. You could be told to infiltrate a huge camp, but how is up to you, and it wasn't until my most recent playthrough did I realise I could wear the enemy's armour, making the infiltration that much much easier. There was no instruction or waypoint to tell me this, I just had to try it out, but then there's other quests that require a little more deliberation from the game's instructions, but either way the variety and unforgettable narrative behind these quests deserve recognition. You could engage in a fist fight with the local priest, Joe Rogan, before getting shit-faced with him, or enter a battle of a lifetime, which was mostly me battling the frame rate rather than the enemy sadly, but still, some of these quest lines are amazing. I think with Warhorse going for the almost photorealistic look was a huge plus point on the immersion side of things, because this game can genuinely take your breath away at times, but it does come at a monstrous cost to the performance sadly. I'm playing at 4K on a 3090 with a mixture of settings on high to very high, and I do not dare touch the ultra settings. I'm able to play at a consistent 60 FPS though, but considering this was developed in 2018, I think it had graphical ideas above its stations for the time. The expansive medieval style open world provides lots of opportunity for exploration outside of the main storyline amongst the perfect royal European setting to get lost in on foot or on horseback. To couple that with the graphics that breathe life into the lush surroundings, and you have to tip your crown to Warhorse Studios in what is an impressive visual achievement, especially from a more modest independent developer. The optimisation and occasionally clunky controls that require a little patience might have some players turning this off in no time, but those that do decide to stick with it and have tolerance for these sort of issues, I'm looking at you Skyrim lovers, are guaranteed to fall in love with Kingdom Come Deliverance. At the time of making this video, the price is all over the place depending on which platform you're on, and currently most expensive at around £25 to $30 on the PS Store, but less than half that on PC or Xbox for some reason. And keep an eye out for the Royal Edition of the game too, which contains all the DLC, including the From the Ashes DLC, which lets you build a town settlement of your own if you've got the coin. There's no next-gen upgrade for console players unfortunately for obvious reasons, but if you can live with the 30 FPS then it's worth it regardless. Let me know your thoughts on this one though, because I'm convinced the majority of gamers who like Kingdom Come Deliverance don't just like it, they absolutely love it, but I wouldn't be surprised to hear that some of you just could not get past the mechanics or even the optimization side of things. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one.